Federal judge in Louisiana has temporarily blocked the Biden administration from ending the Title 42 restriction that was put in place during the pandemic. It is a CDC authority to prevent people who, during a pandemic, might be carriers of the pandemic disease from crossing over into the United States illegally. And here we have Biden's team saying on May 23rd, they're going to lift that. They're going to get rid of that restriction. About half of people who come into the country illegally across the southern border right now are being turned back on Title 42 grounds. Now, keep in mind, that means about half, more like 60%, I think, of those who are apprehended. That does not include gotaways, which is at least tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands a month. Gotaways being people who cross the border and are never apprehended and just make it into the interior of the U.S. So it's the apprehensions that are affected by Title 42. Understandably. And people are asking questions here. People are wondering what is going to happen when Title 42 goes. This federal judge has put a temporary restraining order in place. So this is not struck down. It's not that Title 42 is going to be around for a whole lot longer. We'll see also what happens to this if it makes its way up higher in the court. Jen Psaki, White House propaganda czar, had this to say about where the administration stands on border issues.
After Title 42 is lifted, you talked about having a humanitarian sort of system in place to deal with people coming across and increase vaccinations and that kind of thing. But in terms of, law enforcement presence at the border.
Well, I would just say if we just dial it back a few years to kind of what we inherited here, the former president invested billions of dollars in a border wall that was never going to work or be effective instead of working towards comprehensive immigration reform. As part of the president's proposal he put forward on his first day in office, he proposed investing in smarter security at the border, something he'd be happy to work with governors on. And certainly we're open to having that conversation whenever they're ready to do that.
What she's saying, Clay, is a lie. The border, even incomplete border wall and fencing, any Border Patrol person will tell you it's very helpful, actually. But also, what else are they going to say?
Here's what I would point out, too. How about the White House's silence on the death of the border employee who was helping to try to save lives?
Army National Guard soldier Bishop Evans, who
That's right.
drowned trying to save migrants during their illegal crossing. He was trying to save lives.
I want you to compare, and I saw Byron Donalds tweet this out yesterday, who is a congressman from the 19th District in Florida. How about the comparison between that young man who died trying to save illegal migrant crossers in the river, in the Rio Grande, compared to the amount of attention that the alleged whip issues on the horse got, right? The media, if you want to talk about a total rig job in effect, everybody out there listening, think about that. By the way, that was a lie. Think about how little attention the fact that was a lie, that those Border Patrol officers who were riding on horses were allegedly whipping illegal migrants who were trying to come across. Wasn't true. It's been investigated, found to be not true. White House, Joe Biden standing at the lectern, said that there were going to be consequences for that. Have you heard anybody in the White House talk about this young man who died trying to save illegal migrant crossers? Because I haven't.
Took them days to even acknowledge his name publicly. Took them days to even mention this. And the Democrat media, why isn't there any coverage of just this guy? This is an American, a Texan, African-American, a member of the Texas National Guard who died serving his country at our porous mess of a border because of left-wing lunacy about we don't need borders, who cares? This guy serving his country dies, not a word from most of the liberal media outlets. I don't know, has the White House even officially addressed it yet?
I haven't seen a word about it. Not one. And look, this is emblematic of their failures at the border. We're losing lives because of the southern border being overrun, because people are trying their damnedest to do an incredibly difficult job, and the White House won't even acknowledge them. And Jen Psaki, Buck, if you remember, broke down in tears talking about, the Don't Say Gay bill and how it was going to impact so many people. Have you ever seen Jen Psaki break down in tears over the 13 soldiers who died in Afghanistan? I haven't. Haven't hardly even seen her address it. Certainly haven't seen any emotion involved in it. So we've got White House officials who are willing to cry crocodile tears over bills that don't even purport to do what they are claiming they do. And they won't even address actual people who are losing their lives because of the failed Biden administration policies. This is really consequential, and I think it registers with the vast majority of the American public who are on the side of our Border Patrol officials, who are on the side of our American soldiers, and they won't even mention any of this. And by the way, it's not just the White House. Why are they not getting questions about this from the White House media? Why isn't Jen Psaki having to address the very real consequences in loss of life that are occurring because of this border surge that the Biden administration is driving?
White House Press Secretary, and this is hat tip the Washington Examiner, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki emphasized that Bishop Evans, 22, was employed by the Texas state government under Operation Lone Star when asked whether President Joe Biden's administration was responsible for his death, as border communities brace for a surge in migrants during the summer months and the rolling back of Title 42. We've long stated that our immigration system is broken, she told reporters Monday. There needs to be more done to invest in smarter security, to have a more effective asylum processing system, and we would welcome any efforts with elected officials to work on that, and said that they had inherited the system from former President Donald Trump. Psaki conveyed sympathies to Evans' families, saying her heart goes out to them. We know that National Guard personnel, including him, risk their lives every day to serve and protect others. We're mourning the loss of his life. So they did address it.
Okay, so she did address it. I haven't seen it covered.
I hadn't seen it. I wanted to check and make sure. And again, this is just, we always want to tell you what is true here all the time.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure. Now, that all said, why isn't, I certainly haven't seen any news coverage of it in the context of Bishop Evans is a hero on CNN. Bishop Evans is a hero on the front page of the New York Times. This is a guy who died serving other people, trying to save lives in the Rio Grande. And I think it goes to Democrats are uncomfortable with Border Patrol doing their jobs. And I know he's not a Border Patrol member, but anybody who's trying to work at border security, even if you drown trying to save a woman and her child from drowning, there's not the same focus on heroism because Democrats, on the heroism of the act, because the Democrats are uncomfortable with the presence of uniformed personnel at the border telling people you're not allowed to come in.
Well, and it's only going to get worse unless this judge actually wins. And by the way, is able to uphold the Title 42. This is something that an overwhelming majority of the Senate would be opposed to ending too, which is much like the mask mandate that was 57-40 that many different Democrats in competitive states signed on with the idea that we don't need masks anymore at the at airports. This also was significant in that a lot of them are saying you can't lift Title 42. So we're talking about 57, 58 probably senators, which given what we have in an almost evenly divided Senate, it's almost impossible to get to 60 on anything. This would be a huge just shutdown of what Joe Biden's trying to do. And to the point we made in the last hour, the only thing I can think, Buck, is that they've just recognized that they're going to get destroyed in the midterms because for the entire summer, May, June, July, when people are crossing the border at overwhelming numbers, it's going to be impossible to ignore. It just is. It's going to be a five-alarm fire at the border, and the data reflects that even Democrats don't agree with Joe Biden on the border.
The White House is calling together Hill staffers today at the White House to talk about Title 42 specifically. They are trying to get everybody on the same sheet of music about what to say on this issue, how to handle the fallout from this. I think they're assuming that the judge's order is not going to... Remember, it's not that Title 42 can never be lifted. It's just the process, right? Title 42 is an emergency measure. So what this is actually showing everyone is that there's no plan beyond this to have any real limitation on anybody who comes to the border in large numbers and tries to come into America, not through the legal immigration process, right? At some point, Title 42 actually does need to go, Clay. That's the part of this that we need to remind ourselves of. But then that forces the Biden administration to look at the amount of illegal immigration that's happening and what are they doing about it. Right now, they've been able to say, we inherited this from Trump. It's CDC, it's COVID. So, we're keeping the numbers much lower than they would otherwise be. The moment that goes away, they're going to just have to have Border Patrol members saying, or detaining people and saying, you're going back. It's not about COVID. It's not about CDC authority. You're going back, and they don't want that.
And the data is overwhelming that independent voters, by massive numbers, disagree with what Joe Biden is saying. The data is reflective that Republicans certainly disagree with everything at the border. And even, again, Democrats on many issues. Of all the issues that Joe Biden is facing right now, inflation is probably the most difficult. I would say the border is likely to be the second most difficult by the time we get to the summer. And this thing is actually reversed.
They have no explanation for this. They have no moves to make other than lying about it or agreeing that Trump was right and then actually taking measures, but they will never do that. Their base will completely freak out. They won't do it. So it's going to get worse, folks. It's just a question of when. It's a question of how long they hold on to all this.